Welcome to CyberMAYnia, cyber talks with the brightest minds in cybersecurity. Discussing risks, AI, emerging threats, workforce challenges, and more. Brought to you by CyberRange Solutions. With your host, May Brooks.
Hello and welcome to another episode of CyberMAYnia. And today I'm honored to have a good friend of mine and an amazing cybersecurity professional join me. Hello, Hila Meller. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me here. What a nice welcome. Thank you.
I want to start this off by asking you to tell us a little bit about yourself, about your background in cybersecurity. You've been around for a while.
Yes, thank you. I'll try to do it very kind of briefly and kind of interesting. So I've been in the cyberspace for more than 25 years. And I guess like many people, I started very kind of technically hands-on, mostly around IAM environments and SAP security, ERP security. And I would say that in the last probably 15 years, since 2008, I've been doing more business leadership roles in international capacity for different companies. And the kind of the career that I've created in those years, it's very kind of diverse in the sense that, yes, I've done hands-on and technical, but also executive leadership roles. I worked in services companies and I worked in product companies and in consulting firms. I've done startups. I had a very successful run with a startup called Eurekify that was acquired by CA, Computer Associates, but I also worked for big, large Fortune 500 companies. I was acquired as a startup, and then I also bought companies or even sold companies and worked on spin-offs. So I really got to kind of experience the cybersecurity world from every angle possible. And I find it very kind of exciting. And I also have to say that I love working in cyber. It's one of those few sectors, few jobs that allow you to have a true sense of purpose. You're doing something good, you're helping the world, and I love it. I find it very encouraging in a way. On my free time, I'm co-founder of a global movement called Leading Cyber Ladies. As you can expect from the name, it's all about diversity in cyber and how we can encourage more women to join the cyber industry, helping them in early career decisions and steps, but also helping women that are on the other side of their career journey in senior positions and help them in networking and identifying opportunities for themselves. I'll stop here.
In full disclosure, I'm a member of the Leading Cyber Ladies for a while now, and I think that's actually we'll touch upon that probably later on today, but I think that diversity in cybersecurity is not just in the early stages, it's also later on in the career. And we had a lot of conversations about it, about balancing work life, trying to balance, especially you had very senior roles that you had. Maybe you'll touch upon that a bit later. And I think that's always a challenge for women, and not just women, trying to find that balance, trying to find where their personal lives fit in with their professional lives. So I think it is challenging, and I love that community. I think it's something that was needed, and I think that the fact that it's already gone global really shows that. So I wanted to ask you about actually your more senior positions. You've been in the last, as you said, 15 years in more leadership roles. And as an executive in cybersecurity, you worked for large companies. You mentioned CA, I'll mention BT and other companies that you work for. What is sort of the best approach that you see, that you've seen, that you used at the methodology, that you can recommend for companies that are trying to scale up in this business?
Okay, so I guess we're talking about sales. In other words, are not as nice.
Yeah, marketing and sales. Yeah,
we're talking about how do you sell cyber, right? And I have to say that most of the senior roles that I've done recently were really focused on sales. I was the global head of sales for BT Security in the last few years. and I've done also sales leadership roles in other capacity in other companies. You mentioned CA, HP as well, and BT, British Telecom. So yes, sales methodologies for cyber. First of all, I don't think that one methodology kind of fits all, right? And there are different companies I see now adopt different methodologies of how to operate their sales organizations as they go and sell cyber and they try to scale. And after so many years of experience in different parts of the world and working with different organizations in different regions and geos, my most definite conclusion is that it's not one size fits all, and it's not one methodology that you can adopt and then will help you scale globally. It really requires a good understanding of how processes work in different areas, different cultures buy differently, and it's also about really putting the right talent in place in the right locations and building a good supporting partner ecosystem around you. There's another thing that I want to touch. It's actually how then at the end of the day, cyber salespeople go and approach the theme and how they go and talk to different CISOs around the world. And there's one approach that I really don't like and don't appreciate, and it's that kind of fear generating approach.
Ooh, the fear, uncertainty, and doubt that we loved so much starting out.
And it might have worked initially when the field was still kind of young and some of the CISOs were less experienced. But today, if you're a cybersecurity salesperson and you approach a CISO of a large enterprise, a large company, fear probably wouldn't do the work for you. We're talking about experienced CISOs. They actually know what they're doing. Fear helps when you're dealing with something that is unknown, right? But it's in this case, we're talking about people that are top professionals that have been doing that for a while. I mean, that sector, CISOs have been around for more than 30 years by now. So you have enough experienced people that know what they're doing. So fear wouldn't work so effectively on them. And in addition, usually, and that's behavioral psychology, usually fear can activate an immediate action, right? It can work on quick decisions. And when you work with large companies and CISOs that need to go through a procurement process, potentially in RFP, there's enough time to evaluate, make smart decisions. And so again, fear wouldn't be very effective in this sense. There are the people that might go and they try to, I don't know, scare and put some fear in the mind of the CEO or board members, hoping that they will influence the CISO to make some quick decisions about something. And honestly, while there might be less kind of savvy in cybersecurity, what it means, you might end up creating more noise for the CISO, right? Some senior people starting to call them, and that again wouldn't be appreciated. You wouldn't get any extra points for creating noise for someone that is already extremely busy, already doing a very complex and challenging job. So fear of hackers, fear of being attacked or breached, I don't see that working anymore when you work with really CISOs that work in large organizations. Then there's another type of fear, and that's kind of the fear of being non-compliant or fear of being fined by the regulators. And again, that might create some kind of an action, that might lead to something, but at the end of the day, it will lead to more of an approach of, okay, I need to tick some kind of a box in a checklist, and that will encourage CISOs to probably do the minimal required. It won't encourage them to go and do a transformational cybersecurity approach. If you use that kind of excuse of fear mechanism around compliance, being non-compliant, you might end up setting something very small to a CISO, just to tick a box somewhere in an audit checklist, right? Just to get them through.
Which we know that you can be compliant to a whole set of regulations and standards, and it doesn't mean that you're secured. It just means that you ticked all the boxes.
Exactly. spot on.
So what approach would you tell a salesperson trying to sell cybersecurity to take?
Value. Help your customer to become more successful in what they do. Find a way to tell your story in a way that it will be business compelling to them. Help them be more successful as a business. When you do that, you establish yourself not as a supplier, but as a partner. And then you can look at also different kind of pricing mechanisms. Is there a way to work on some kind of, revenue share model in which if they're successful, I'm also successful. The more they grow and scale, the more I grow and scale. And so it's around building that kind of business value around what you're proposing to the CISO, helping them and their company to be more successful. And even there, you need to find a compelling reason of why do you need to do it right now? Why is there some kind of a sense of urgency that you want to do it right now to really kick off the process? So that's my view on sales methodologies and approaches to how to position cyber solutions to CISOs.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with you. I think that you mentioned that CISOs today have been in the industry for a while. It's not a new industry anymore. And I think that part of that maturity of us as CISOs and of the entire cybersecurity landscape is the fact that we understand that we cannot sell ourselves, and even ourselves as CISOs, we can't position ourselves as the fear-generating business unit. We have to become a real business unit. We have to give them some sort of value. And when I speak to CISOs, and we both speak to a lot of CISOs, one of the saddest things I personally see that some CISOs, I ask them, okay, you work for X company, what do you do? And maybe they know how to describe it in one sentence, but if I ask them about the business side, are you successful? Are you not successful? Are you like business questions? A lot of CISOs still don't know how to answer these questions. And I think that if we want to mature as an industry, I think it's probably different in larger organizations from my experience, but for medium-sized businesses, a lot of CISOs still think only from the technical side. And I think we have to mature as well. We have to learn business. And you've done that sort of transformation from very hands-on to the more business-oriented side. A question that we didn't plan, but do you miss the hands-on part of the work?
It's not that I yes and no. I used to find it relaxing in a way, sometimes doing this. But I, in a way, it's not that I miss it. It's I wish I could do more of that. That I could find time to do more of that, because the more the more you get far away from that, you learn other concepts and other things that you work, and you really kind of get away from the technical parts of doing hands-on. So I wish I had the time to do it more.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned fear and you mentioned compliance, and I want to mention an incident that I know that you've been following, I've been following personally, and it's called the Sherbit breach. Sherbit is an Israeli-based insurance company that was breached. Wow, I think it's almost 3 years ago. They had a massive data breach. The entire network was first. They had ransomware, so they thought that the initial problem was the encryption. Then they found out that all of their data had been leaked. It was massive. It reached the headline news for I think 5 or 6 days in a row. It opened up. All the major news outlets talked about this breach. And the following year, the company has been sold to another insurance company. And I know that we've both followed that incident, that breach. And I want to ask about your perspective regarding this specific breach and cybersecurity breaches in general. Do you see a direct connection between business results and cybersecurity incident breaches, more or less? What do you see in the industry?
Okay. It's an interesting question, and I want to look at it from a few angles. Okay, one is, can companies collapse, cease to exist because of a cybersecurity breach, or your share value, if you're a publicly traded company, your share value, how bad can it be for you after a breach, and also in the mid to long term, right? Can you recover from that? So, but essentially, really, how bad can a bad breach to be to your business that it can really kind of cause to your complete collapse of business? So, the good news are that yes, companies can collapse because of a cyber security incident, but, and here comes the but, and here's the good news, it's really rare. It's really, really rare. I could think of a few examples where companies that were heavily relying on their IP, and that IP was stolen, and then basically eliminated their entire competitive advantage that can eventually lead to a collapse of a company. I can think about a few stories of crypto exchange companies that went through a hack, and as a result, all their assets were crypto accounts, and those were basically stolen. So they were left without the business. The business itself was stolen from them, and that caused for them to go through bankruptcy. But these are rare cases. They do happen, but we're talking about some very specific cases, and they are rare. You do have cases in which companies that are not healthy to begin with, that struggle to begin with, they go through an attack, and they find it very difficult to recover from that attack. And there was a recent case in the UK where a logistic company went through a cyber attack, and they were struggling before that. The market conditions around them changed, and that created challenges. And then after that cyber attack happened, it really created a cost for them, the cost to recover from that, the cost of taking care of that. And they found it really impossible to get any additional investments that will allow them to grow and maintain the business, and they had to shut down the business and let go the people. So also here we see, yes, it happens, but we're also talking about a company that had its own challenges before. If you look at the big breaches that happened in the last few years, the biggest breach, I think, was Yahoo. Like billions of records were stolen, and they're still around. Microsoft went through some serious breaches, still around. Facebook, still around. Another famous story, the Maersk story. Maersk couldn't operate for a few months because of an attack. And if you look to then, I think it was 2019. So we're now 4 years after that attack. And if you look at their share value and how the company is performing, they're performing great. 2022, the Maersk share value was the best performance ever. So you can see that a robust company that is resilient can overcome a devastating attack, really. The same with Norsk Hydro, aluminum factories, and they couldn't operate again for a few weeks. They couldn't operate. They had to revert to manual processes, but it's a strong company. And also them, if you look at their share values and how they operate today, just a few years after the attack, I think that was 2020. If you look at how they performed fantastically well, they also, their shares are in kind of record high that never been before. So if the company is resilient, then probably, yes, an attack will do damage. It will impact, your profitability, because you'll have a very high cost that wasn't planned initially. Might take some time before you'll see any money coming back from your insurer. So yes, there will be a financial impact, but resilient companies should be able to recover from that. It's really, really rare that companies actually do collapse because of an attack. Now let's talk about Sherbit. So Sherbit was acquired by another insurance company for 100 million Israeli shekel, or what back then was 30 million, I think, US dollar, roughly 35 million US dollars. If you look at how profitable they were before the attack cost them about 9 million to fix, and I think they were profitable around. And they said that attack, how much the cost of the attack basically eliminated almost all their profits. They left with very little profit. And so let's say that positions them in a annual profit of around 9 to 10 million, and they were acquired 100 million.
100.
That's a multiplier of 10. Sounds reasonable.
That's not bad. Exactly. That's not bad at all.
So even in that case of an acquisition, and that happened, that company was on sale before the attack, and it could be that the attack accelerated, speeded that process. But on the same time, when you look at how profitable they were and how much was paid for them at the end, it makes sense. It doesn't look like went on an end of season sale, and it looks fine. So also there I want to reduce kind of the level of panic and hysteria that you see. Yes, it can impact your share value. Resilient companies will raise above that. Just check the Maersk share story in the last few years. You'll see that. You'll see the bridge, and then you see how the share recovered. And so it's it can happen. It will create some damage, but it's usually things that can be repaired and recovered from.
And I love how I completely agree with you. And I love how that point basically sort of resonates to your previous points of not selling through fear. Because even if we take something like the Shearbit attack, or we take something like Equifax at the time, those were major breaches in industries that traditionally cybersecurity people were used to say, you can't have a serious data breach in a financial company because the public will never trust you again. Well, not necessarily. At the end of the day, when people came to have their insurance, either a new insurance or renew their insurance, they went to who gave them the best offer. And if it was Shearbit, they continued working with Shearbit. And let's say from my cybersecurity ego point of view, that hurts. Because it means that we care more than the rest of the world does. But we know that. And again, that's part of the maturity of understanding that we have to give real business value. And we can't just tell them, oh, if we'll have a breach, we'll be out of business. Chances are that we won't. For the majority of companies, I agree with you. If someone steals the actual IP of the company and publishes it, then the company doesn't have assets that will allow it to continue. But that is like specific case studies that we have to talk about.
You will also hear, I'm not saying it's my personal opinion, but you will also hear opinions of other professionals in the market that will say there is no bad publicity. Right?
True.
And all the news outlets are talking about you. The public might actually, be more familiar with you and end up investing in you more. So it's there's also that opinion that you could hear from people.
That's true. It sort of became a household name, which I don't think they were before the attack. So that's interesting. I want to reference a little bit about the workforce challenges, which is huge in cybersecurity. We know that we have a current workforce gap of 3.5 million people that are needed in cybersecurity. So if you're contemplating a career in cybersecurity, please join us. We need more people. But I want to go back to the point that you started with, that we talked about a little bit in the beginning, and that's diversity. Leading cyber ladies and diversity in general, because I can't talk to you and not talk about the elephant in the room. Yes, we're two women in cybersecurity having a conversation, which should be, in my eyes, 2023, the most natural thing in the world. Unfortunately, it's not. So I would love to hear your perspective as someone who's been in the industry for so long and has mentored so many women in this industry.
Okay, so 2015, we co-founded Leading Cyber Ladies. I clearly didn't found Leading Cyber Ladies myself. Karen Elazari, who's a good friend, she was there with me, and it was actually something that she said that inspired us to go on that journey. And she was actually talking about how she began as a hacker, how she began kind of her career and as a security researcher. And she talked about the fact that she didn't have any role models, and that her role model was basically a character played by Angelina Jolie in a movie, because that was the best that she knew of back then. And so I see, the role of people like yourself, like myself, is also the role of being role models, of being out there, be visible, and I really encourage women in this space and any other diverse communities in this space, because it's not just about women that we don't see enough of in this space. It's also other types of diversity. Be visible, right? Show people that you are there, because then you will show the younger generations that it is possible, because you cannot become something that you do not see. So being out there and being visible is super, super important. And yeah, but I have to say that in the last years, the area has changed, because I talked about the lack of role models, but other reasons why we don't see a lot of diverse communities in this sector is just people that are being biased, but they're not doing that because they're bad people, or it's just because of how our brain is wired. And so all of us are biased. This is how it is. This is how our brain is functioning. And so to kind of unwire it and unlearn it, I've seen a lot of organizations taking their management teams through being more conscious about being biased, and how to kind of unwire that in our brain, so you can then look at more diverse community of employees and candidates for different roles. So a lot is being done in this space, and there are a lot of reports that are now available. Companies now expose more and more their diversity situation in reports, whether it's the pay gap situation and how many people are employed, but a lot is being done. Are we there yet? Of course not. Of course, it's enough to kind of enter a meeting room and see how many people are there, and see it, how they look like. But no, we're not there yet, but we're making good progress. And I have to say that kind of my next battle, or where I really want to focus next, is really making sure that we have enough women in the boardroom, in the board of directors, making those really critical business decisions, and governing companies, and making sure that they do what is needed in that space.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I completely agree with your point of you can't be what you can't see. I had those conversations with Karen as well, with you, with other women in cybersecurity. When I was starting out, I couldn't see any role models that talked about the fact that they're women in cybersecurity and they have families. That was sort of hidden. And I think it still is to some degree, not just in cybersecurity, in business as well. You don't see a lot of business women in general say, hi, I'm a CEO, COO, whatever, and I'm also a mother of 2 kids. And I think that's also a conversation, not just for women, I think for men as well. Yes, we have our professional roles, we have our personal lives, and I actually think that being a mother, and I have 3 kids, I think that being a mother makes me a better professional. It makes me more focused, it makes me understand other challenges that I wouldn't understand if I wasn't a mother. And again, it's not everyone wants to be a parent, but for me, it gave me a different perspective. And for me, by the way, relocating to another part of the world gave me a different perspective. And I've seen diverse teams, and I think that they are better equipped at dealing with cyber attacks because the attackers are also diverse. Not all attackers are mid-age white dudes with a black hoodie. They come in all shapes, sizes, and colors. So
correct.
Yeah,
we have a complex problem, and to solve it or address it, we need a complex set of brains, a diverse set of brains that go after that. I often use that as a pitch. Yeah, and it's true.
Yeah. Last professional questions before we touch on a few other things. Throughout your career, you said 25 years, you've seen so many trends come and go in cybersecurity. What do you feel will be the next big thing?
Okay. Can we have these conversation without saying AI? Can we not have
That's your choice.
It's
You
just
tell me.
it's clearly it's happening. Clearly it's risky. It's a great tool for us, the protector. It also opens the door for very, very sophisticated attacks, right? Deep fake and all. Now I said my pitch on AI. Now I'll say something else. Okay. So I think that what worries me is that today, 2023, still some very basic security elements are very difficult to do. I'll give you a few examples. Authentication. We are still using passwords. We're still using passwords, right? And there are so many good alternatives, yet password is still the most common approach to authentication. So I think that should remain. It is a priority and it should remain a priority, and I don't see that going away so quickly, unfortunately. Really, if you've asked me a few years ago, I said, yeah, we want a password. But yeah, simple authentication, right, still remains a problem. We still use passwords, which is false. Another thing, configurations or misconfigurations, right? Large companies,
Yeah.
they find it very challenging just to manage their pastor, their poster, their estate. And usually large organizations will also have a set of outsourcers and services providers that so they will work in some kind of a federated complex model with some stuff on the clouds and stuff on the ground, different hands touching different things and different responsibilities. So it's just very, very difficult to do this most basic thing around making sure that you have the right configuration in place or identifying misconfigurations. And again, 2023, we are discussing that. The future trend, that is not that futuristic actually, because we need to address it now today, is around that I really like is around quantum computing and more specifically post-quantum cryptography. I think it's interesting because we are basically asked to solve a problem right now, but the problem itself will only manifest itself in a few years from now. And just to be more specific, so quantum computers are being worked on, but they're not around yet for commercial use. It will take a few more years, and then we will have quantum computing. Once we have those computers in place, it will be possible to decrypt secrets. And some secrets are temporary secrets, right? And in the future, we want the entire world to know about it. But there are some secrets that should be well kept even 50 years from now, right? And we want them to remain a secret. And quantum computers, when they will become available, they will be able to decrypt and have access to those secrets. So today, we need to find ways to have cryptography that will be resistant to quantum computers. And I find it just a fascinating problem because we usually need to find solutions for problems that manifested themselves. And here the problem is still, it's not even theoretic. We just know it's a matter of time until it become a problem. But the solutions we must find them now and put them in place. So when the day comes, we are ready to deal with it. So it changes the whole paradigm of cybersecurity and protection.
It does. Yeah, I think quantum computer will be a huge, huge change that as an industry, we need to think about it now. I see a big difference. You said not to mention AI, but I have to because I think that
I think it's so obvious and everybody's talking about it already.
No, but I think that, you know what, I had a conversation with a techie person. He's not in cybersecurity, but he's an engineer. And we talked about AI and ChatGPT. And I asked him, well, why don't you do it with ChatGPT? Oh, I never used that. Seriously, dude? And for me as a techie person, it sounds weird. I mean, I use it all the time for basically everything I do. My joke is that I stopped working. I now only create prompts that will do things for me, and then I fix them. So that's basically what I've been doing for the last year plus minus. But I think that we can't wait for quantum computers to become like a commodity, like it happened with generative AI. We have to think about it now. I completely agree. Before we wrap this up, I always love to ask a few like personal, professional questions. Very quick. What jumps to your head? No right or wrong answers here. So, if you hadn't chosen a career in tech, what would you be doing today?
career in tech kind of chose me. Okay, it's but as a teenager in high school, I wanted to be a vet. Actually.
That. Okay. Okay. If you had to describe your cybersecurity sort of journey in one word, what word would that be?
Oh my god. Oh my god. OMG.
That's 3 words.
OMG. Just use the OMG.
OMG is pretty good, actually. Yeah, yeah. Okay, I'll accept that. I know that you're a big music lover. Is there like a specific genre or even song that gets you in the zone when you work?
I actually don't. It will surprise you. I don't play music when I work. I'm not the kind of person that needs white noise in order to concentrate. I concentrate when I concentrate. So I usually don't do that. But yeah, so I DJ as a hobby, and just promoting myself a little bit. I DJ as a hobby. And no, the kind of the musical genre I'm following right now, when I'm allowed to, it's more like Afrobeat, African music
Nice.
with with Afrobeats, which I find very kind of tribal and inspiring and spiritual, and yeah, so yeah.
Beautiful. How do you celebrate your achievements, your successes?
I usually drink. I'll get a glass. I'll get a glass of good Italian wine. Yeah.
Like one does, absolutely.
Yeah.
And last but not least, if you could go back in time and give a younger Hila starting out her career one piece of advice, what would that be?
I would say back then, early in the days, I would say communicate. Really, it's all about communicating what you do. Well, not be shy about it, but really kind of communicate what you do to your colleagues, your superiors. Kind of be proud of what you do. Be very confident around it, and communicate it. That really helps. I learned along the years how to communicate, and especially when you work in large organizations, those internal comms and how you work with different stakeholders and the different people above you, parallel to you, below you. That's a whole science. That's a whole skill. And that's definitely something I would encourage people to kind of learn and get better at.
Amazing. Hila Meller, sir, thank you so much for joining me today. It was absolutely a pleasure having you. And I hope to see you guys around for the next CyberMAYnia.